Hello, everyone, and welcome to No More Mondays, the podcast where we explore the human side of modern work so that you can design the career and the life that you love. I am your host, Angie Callen, and today's episode is brought to you by Scary Good, Discovering Life Beyond the Sunday Scaries. It is my new book, and I trust it is scary good. It's officially out in the world, and you could check it out at scarygoodread.com. And if you are one of those who were an early reader, first, thank you. But you also are going to get to hear about something that I talk about pretty extensively in the book. And it's a topic we've never deep dived into here on No More Mondays, even though I happen to know a lot about it. And that is being in business with your spouse. Right in time for Valentine's Day, maybe that was planned. I am joined by Robert Fukui. He is a business coach, co-founder of I-61 Business Development, and also the co-author of the book Tandem, The Married Entrepreneur's Guide for Greater Work-Life Balance. I'll let you guess who the other author is. Robert and his wife, Kay, co-lead a business that helps other couples do what they've done, build a thriving business and a strong marriage without losing themselves or each other in the process. And I can attest to you that is not as easy as it may sound. As somebody who has worked with my spouse and owned a business with my spouse, shout out to Jim, I know how firsthand, how rewarding this can be and also real the journey is to build something sustainable that doesn't become lopsided. And so I'm excited to give you a little bit of a look behind the curtain and some food for thought on the entrepreneur in your life you may be supporting. So let's dive in. Robert, welcome to No More Mondays.
Hey, Angie, great to be here, and I'm looking forward to this. And also, real quick, in case a listener is not married or not working with their spouse but married, it still applies, because whether you work together or not, the business does create a level of stress that people that work a W-2 job don't really, experience that. So, just want to put that in.
I 100% agree. And we're actually going to touch on that too. And so I'm glad you threw it out there, because if you are not a married spouse, but you have an entrepreneurial spouse or partner, stay here, because everything we're about to talk about totally applies. And, my perspective on that, Robert, I'm glad you brought it up, is your spouse can make or break your business flat out. Even if they're not in it, working in it, and they're on the sidelines, the way they do or don't support you can make or break your business. And so if that isn't enough to make you stay on and hear more, I don't know what is. So good teaser, good hook.
Exactly.
When it does come to the working with your spouse, it is an even more challenging ball game than being married to an entrepreneur. I usually joke with Jim that he should start like an entrepreneurial spouse support group, because it definitely isn't easy, and it's a lifestyle choice that you may get married into. But if you are married into it together, it is definitely a difference, because now you're not just working from home, you're running a business. There's no commute to decompress. There's no like on and off switch. And there's like at best a blurred line between dinner conversation and a board meeting, right? It's non-existent if you're not really intentional about it. And so I'm curious, Robert, for you and Kay, as co-founders, co-leaders, cohabitators, all the things at once, what made you guys decide to do this and go into business together?
Actually, it wasn't really a intentional choice. It was one of those things where one thing just leads to another. And I think just in my world, just growing up, my experience from school, professional life, and all that stuff, I'm just one of those like problem solvers. So I just see a problem and I want to fix it, is basically what happens. Not thinking about, oh, this is going to lead to working with my spouse, or like, hey, I'm going to start this business so I can work with my wife. That was not the thing. In fact, my career is really based in marketing sales for Fortune 500 companies. I worked for a big beverage company and then in the pharmaceutical industry. And it was 9 years ago when I kind of ventured off to start this business. And I remember, when I'm starting, Kaylee's like, hey, how can I help? Because she grew up in an entrepreneurial household. I did not. My dad was actually a pastor. Her dad was a business owner. So she kind of grew up in that environment. So she's like, hey, how can I help? Because she worked for her dad for so many years. I'm like thinking in the back of my head, like, this would not be good for our marriage. I don't think this is a good idea. So this is what's going to my head. So I told her, no, I got this, and it wasn't because I didn't think she could help. It was just, I didn't think it'd be good for our marriage. And so basically I said no, but she kept persisting. And so I slowly would give her little tasks here and there. And eventually, long story short, it came to working together. And especially as we found our little niche in helping not just business owners, but business owners that are married. And even though we always say you don't have to work together, we just know understand the stress that a business can create in a marriage. But what's happened is organically, just 90% of our clients that come to us, they are working together at some capacity. And so they obviously they just understand the stress a lot more than everybody else. So all that to say is, once we kind of fell into that niche, now Kayla and I really are working side by side, hand in hand, because when we're on our coaching calls, when we're with them, like we just onboarded a new client in Denver, right in your backyard, a couple months ago. So we flew out to Denver, and over the weekend we onboarded them and kind of, we're there together. And so we do work together, we travel together, we live together and all that. So it just kind of happened. So basically, long story short, it just kind of happened.
And I wonder if that is more common than not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you have like a legacy family business that's been passed down to generation, and you already see that coming. Yeah. I don't know how many people go, okay, let's get married and then we'll have a business together so that we have nothing but 100% of our time spent together, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, because in our history, we've kind of had two situations. One, Jim and I bought a business together. There is chapter 6 of the book. Please go read it because it is scary, but turns scary good. And that's where I learned a lot about this. And then my coaching businesses, he kind of came into very similarly to what you described, where it was like, he had the availability, I needed capacity, and it just kind of slowly worked its way, kind of his way, like into working with me, especially because we were gun shy after the first go round. And so we had to be really careful. But I'm curious in this, like, I love that you're like, it just happened. And so I kind of agree with that. And so I'm curious what surprised you about the reality of it now that you're in it.
So, my first thought, as I said, was this would not be good for our marriage. I've heard too many stories and all that, and, just another layer of stress and all that. So the surprising thing, looking back, is that we've actually really, it's not perfect. We had our moments and all that, but really we have learned to work well together, and we do work well together. And what I've realized is we work well together because we already knew how to live well together, meaning we knew how to deal with conflict. We knew how to communicate in a way that don't trigger each other as much, or if we do trigger, we end up in this, we call cycle of insanity, where we're just having discussion and arguments and it just get bigger and bigger, or we get louder, or I talk slower or whatever, hoping that she'll finally understand what I'm saying. But anyways, we've learned how to do conflict and how to resolve issues without it becoming personal. And so because of that, we can work well together because we deal with issues all the time in business, like any other couple. And I think, and that's the number one thing, that's the number one gap we see with couples that work together, is their inability to resolve issues and move forward. And that's the thing that keeps you stuck. So when you can't make a decision to move forward, well, guess what? Not just you as a couple can't move forward, but the business can't move forward. Yeah. So what we found was, we can get all the business tactics in line, but if you can't agree, then guess what? We're at a stalemate. And so just knowing how to resolve those issues is, I think, the thing that looking back, we knew how to do that in life already. So which meant we could do it well in business. And that's kind of the things that I think scares people.
I think that the mirroring part of what you just said is such a really good point to think about, is that if you can do it if your partner's in life and have figured out how to do that well, communicate well, know how to resolve issues, because we know they're going to come up no matter what. Yeah. That should translate to business as long as you transfer the skills and don't let the additional or different layer of stress create different kind of communication channels. Yep. And I guess I'm curious. I can see how that's a very common situation that you see. I'm also curious, what do you see as the thing that causes that friction the most? Like, are there certain areas of business, or is it certain overlaps with life that you see those friction points coming up more often than others?
Yeah, if you start at a high level, we just communicate differently. So if you've done any kind of Enneagram, or we use a DISC profile or Myers-Briggs and all that, you know that, yes, you have some similarities in your personality, your communication style, and your work styles, but you also have differences. And for most couples, there are layers of differences, and it's those differences that actually create the friction. So let's say, for example, just the communication piece, right? Where I'm more of the analytical side, Kaylee's more the storyteller. So I want details. She's going to tell me this long story. So as she's telling me this long story, it's becoming irritating. And so I said, get to the point. And then if I'm just giving her some analysis, but she doesn't get the context of the story, she's going to keep asking me questions so she can get the full understanding the way she wants it. And those questions, those constant questions irritate me. So it's not the topic or the issue that's creating the friction. It's actually the way we communicate is different.
I'm laughing because Robert is Angie and Kaylee is Jim.
Of course. Yeah. It's totally common. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think one thing that's worked for us, and I don't necessarily know I can tell you how I was able to do this. I do think it's a level of like emotional understanding and commitment to knowing when there's a work conversation going on versus when there's like a home conversation going on. And so basically like Jim is very good at knowing this is Angie and she is in boss mode tone right now. And she's not mad at husband Jim. She is like, there is something about work going on and being able to like flip that switch. And I think that's kind of an example of the communication that you're talking about and knowing like how to put all that together and when to turn it off.
Yeah, exactly. And if you can warn your spouse ahead of time, hey, I'm in business mode or I'm in brainstorming mode or I need a solution or whatever, when you preface it ahead of time, that allows me to figure out what hat to put on, right?
Yeah.
And also for us, we take a little step forward is we just have boundaries of when we talk about business and not. And so, especially after 6 o'clock, it's supposed to be no business talk. But inevitably, it does come up, right? And so the question is, if Kaylee brings something up or I bring something up, the other spouse is just going to say, hey, do we need to talk about this now? Is this a real emergency or can we talk about it tomorrow? Or we have weekly meetings, which, interesting enough, is Monday afternoons. Even though your podcast is no more Mondays, but we need Mondays because Monday afternoons is actually our meeting time at 3:30. So that's when we can go over our personal and business issues. And so we actually have a placeholder for those non-urgent items, but our things we need to talk about, it's just not urgent. And so you have to kind of check each other. So one, we do have boundaries on when we talk about business and not, but inevitably when things pop up, we just ask ourselves, hey, is this urgent that we need to talk about now or later? Or can we talk about later? And just make sure we put a time and date in which we are what later is, because a lot of times in a lot of couples, not just in couples, but even in business, a lot of times we'll say, we'll talk about it later, and later never comes. And then that gets the other person gets irritated and frustrated because when are we going to talk about this? So that's, which means they're going to bring it up again. Right. And so anyways, just added that piece.
Yep. The point there is, and I'm glad you brought this up because I wanted to kind of dig inside and ask about like how you guys have created boundaries. And the important thing here is you have to be intentional about boundaries and when and whatever structure kind of works for you. One of the things I am a constant stream of ideas. And so ChatGPT has helped mitigate that some because now I have a receptacle for it. But I still, and before that, would constantly be like, hey, Jim, I have an idea. And I process out loud. And so we've gotten good and I have gotten okay with, this is the big thing, with, him saying to me, do I need to actually be listening to you right now? Or do you just need a wall to talk at? Right. And so that's the kind of thing where it's like asking permission, putting things in check and pause that are kind of create these boundaries or compartments of what's work and what's play. And so now I want to go talk to those people you talked to for a hot second at the beginning, the people that are married to one of us. Because I'm sure some of them out there are like, man, I ain't even the married business spouse. And this has all sounded pretty familiar because we talk about business, all the time. And my idea generator other half is just constantly telling me what's going on in a business that I understand. So talk to these people more a little bit of how they can be supportive and how we can create boundaries in that situation too.
So like the supportive spouse that's not
let's talk to the support. Well, hopefully they're a supportive spouse. So let me interject and say, if you're not a supportive spouse, be a damn supportive spouse. If you are one, now you're going to listen to Robert.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. You just need each other. And especially as a business owner, it can feel so isolating. And who do you talk to? I mean, you got masterminds and groups and all that, but who better to talk to and just share the ups and downs of your life and business than your spouse, and how do you support that, right? Because we know a lot of some spouses, they're like, I don't want to hear anything about it, right? It's like, well, that's dangerous, because now what you're doing is creating a wall between you and your husband or you and your spouse, because
Yep.
you don't want to talk about that part of life, but it's life, right?
Yep.
And the business, his or her life in business is part of your life. The business is going to affect your life whether you like it or not. So you might also be involved at some level. Now, how much, that's the question that
Yeah.
you and your spouse have to talk about. If Kaylee was the business owner, for example, so I'll just be the supportive spouse, and she's working the business, the thing I would say is, okay, how can I support you? Now, I don't want to know all the details, but Kaylee likes to share all the details. So that's could be the challenge, right?
You may
Because
want a type of support that isn't really your jam.
yeah. So what I will do is, okay, hey, like, do you need 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, 15 minutes just to decompress? And kind of similar to what Jim asked you, do you just need something just to speak at? Right. So we kind of create those things like daily. I don't want to hear I may not want to hear all the details for the next 2 hours, but hey, for the next 15, 20 minutes, do you just need to vent some things off?
Yeah.
And if you do need to bounce ideas off and talk things through, we can set up schedules for that and stuff like that. And just know, and then I don't have to also, do I need to come up with solutions, or I just need to help you talk through things? Because sometimes the supportive spouse is thinking they need to come up with solutions for
Yeah.
their husband or wife. But when that's not the case, right? Sometimes they just need to bounce things out, just vent, and just know that things are okay. That I would say to Kaylee is like, hey, it's going to be okay. I got your back. I trust what you do. How can I support you without having to get into the minutia? And so that's just a discussion you just have to have up front. And you definitely want to be supportive at some level, because once, like, I know when I know Kaylee's got my back, right? I feel like I can do anything. She doesn't need to come up with solutions. I just need to know she supports and trusts me, basically.
Trust is a huge
Yeah.
that's the magic word here, I think,
Yeah.
especially if you are a spouse married to an entrepreneur and you're not married entrepreneurial spouses. You have to trust your entrepreneurial spouse's instincts and the business performance. And if you don't, you know, there's likely underlying other like trust issues. This is I feel like, Robert, you really should have like an honorary LMFT, right? This is just as much relationship therapy as it is business growth strategy.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we've been married 19 years, so I think I at least have that degree, if not more, that certification or more.
Yeah, I
Just my
think
experience.
after 13 years staying married through a bankruptcy with no therapy and coaching for 8 years, I am definitely at least playing a therapist on TV.
Yeah.
And that brings me to something I wanted to ask you about, and that is the mindset here, because I'm guessing money is a big point of contention and friction in a lot of these conversations. Because even just in an entrepreneurial land, so much of the narrative is about like growth, 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 hustle culture, growth at all costs. But when your marriage is essentially part of that business, that cost can get like really real, really fast. And one of the things that I like you talk about is this mindset of it isn't necessarily about more money, it's more about better life, and thinking about this as a choice you made in order to have a lifestyle. And I want you to talk a little bit more about how we can kind of shift that mindset from like, let's just make more money to having a more aligned, sustainable life as married entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So one word that you can just remember and mark it down, highlight it, whatever, it's called margin. So what you kind of touched on, the hustle and grind mentality is more sales, more sales, more sales. And if we grow more sales, then everything else takes care of itself, our life and all that. But as you know, even with your background, the bankruptcy background, right? More sales. Well, in your case, you lost a lot of sales, but we've come to situations where they've grown in sales, like one recently, 50% growth, but their bottom line shrank. It is absolutely possible. We've seen it.
Yeah.
We've helped
Yeah.
businesses through it. I've helped business turn around because of those issues. So more and more sales is not always the answer. In fact, if you don't have the proper margins, that it can actually, you can go bankrupt off of it, because anyways, we don't have enough time to get into the financial
Oh,
nitty
this
gritty
is
of it.
this is like, I feel like nerdy conversation
Yeah.
2.0, or two analytical
But just,
personalities
but
can
just
have, but
know if all you do is look at your last 3 years and you see sales going up, but you see your bottom line shrinking in margin, right?
yes.
The dollar amount might grow, but the margin might be shrinking. It might be 5% net sales
Yep.
3 years ago, or 5% net profit years ago, but it might be 3 or 2% now, even though the trajectory of your top line is going up. So I'm always looking for, how do we get more margin? So with each transaction, how do we make a little bit more?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that we don't have to work as hard or just slave away, so that I do have more time to be at home. But also, even with our clients, because if you're in the coaching and consulting world, if I don't have to work, if I can shrink my client base in half, because I've done that, then all of a sudden I've got more time and
Yep.
make the same amount of money, if not more. Now I've got more time to be available to my clients. So,
Love
we're
it.
typically just like you. I'm sure we have coaching calls, they're scheduled and all that. But I mean, just last week, when one of our clients, just texted me and said, "Hey, do you got 5 minutes?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Give me in a couple hours." I was in between meetings, and yeah. So there's a lot of, in the coaching world, a lot of times they're stacking their day with so much stuff, so much clients and so many meetings and all that they don't have any margin for those potential opportunities to be available. So it's not just being available at home, but it's even being available for those unexpected calls and unexpected emergencies. So I never wanted to be that one that says, "Hey, 3 weeks out, you can book a call," just like your doctor sometimes, right? "Hey, I've got an emergency. You better go to urgent care, see somebody else, because I don't have another opening for another 3 weeks," right?
Yeah.
I mean, your personal doctor.
Make sure they send me the chart,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I never wanted to be that consultant, that coach. And so basically it was my mentor that prodded me and said, "You need to double your price." And I was like, I had all the excuses that I'm sorry someone listening is thinking. I was new to the consulting world. I was trying to build my brand presence and all that. So I was just trying to get clients to the door. Right. And so he says, "No, you need to double your price." And so I finally did. And I was like, it was amazing that I actually got more opportunities.
And better.
And better.
I hate to say it. Now we're getting, this is juicy. Like, I love the whole entrepreneurial, but this is like business foundational stuff. And there are definitely coaches listening out there going, "Oh, this sounds just like stuff Angie says to me." Because as a coach, our COG, cost of goods sold, is time.
Mm-hmm.
And what you want to do is get the maximum return on your investment of time and in coaching impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much impact can I create in as little time as possible, which sounds weird. However, the further up the food chain you go, the better, the actually like less needy the clients are, is one thing that I've found.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone out there. That's just a truth.
Yeah.
Because they value you and your time more than what feels like the commodity of what you're providing them. And that's what comes with the value and perception that is higher fees. And I'm going to tie this back to everything we're talking about, because time in business means time away from home, family, and marriage. And if both of you have no margins, then you don't have time to make sure you're intentionally nurturing the marriage that theoretically came before the business.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You're right on, spot on.
Yeah. So
margin is huge. So
margin, and it has many definitions here, I should think is important. Oh, a point I wanted to make, because Robert and I are businessy numbers people. If all you're looking at is at revenue growth, but you're not looking at the expense potential growth with it, that's where you get no margin, right? Because usually it does cost something to get more business. And so a lot of times those two things should at least stay proportional, so your margin's not getting smaller, but you have to be careful that making more money isn't costing proportionally more money and your margin's getting smaller. And then that reduces your human margin. And all of this impacts the marriage margin. Look at that for tying it all together into an equation. It's all intertwined.
Yeah, because sometimes they're spending way too much in marketing. It's time or money, right? So sometimes if you're trying to do it all yourself, you're spending a lot of time doing it in marketing, or you're paying an agency, or it's a combination of two. And if you're measuring both the time and the money issue, right? Because again, you have to say the time that you're putting into the business, let's say it is for marketing, like how much is that worth, right? Like how much money is that worth of the time every week that you're spending in marketing in the business? So even though you're not paying somebody, but that time does mean something. And
Yep.
so how much is that worth? And then the more time and money you're spending into it versus the return that you're getting, if that margin is shrinking, right, you're really not doing anything. In fact,
Right.
we've had a number of clients where, because I do geek out about the financials, but I did have one client in particular where they're losing money. They lost about 800 grand the previous year. It's kind of an e-commerce manufacturing business. So I was looking at the numbers and I was like, man, you spend a high percentage of your income, your revenue
Yeah.
in marketing. So 30% of the revenue was going to marketing, which is way too high for any business.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to know
Let
like
alone, let
what your
alone an
margin ratio
e-commerce
should be.
manufacturing business that also actually has a cost of like a legit hard
Yeah,
cost of goods. Holy cow. Woo.
exactly. So I said the big chunk of your loss is really coming off the marketing.
Yeah.
And so they're like, but if we can't cut marketing costs because that's where the revenue is coming in, right? I said, okay, hold on. I said, here's how we quote unquote cut marketing costs is we have to get results. We have to get a better return on investment. So instead of for every $3 you spend, you're getting 10, we got to get 20
Yeah.
or 25 or 30, right? So we got to get better ratio. We got to get a better return on investment, basically is what we're doing. So basically comes down to, we got to do marketing better.
Yeah.
We get
Which,
higher click-through rates. We got to get higher search
yeah.
results, whatever, right? We got to, all those metrics, then we got to get into to improve that. So we don't necessarily have to cut dollar costs, but we do have to increase results.
Well, and I feel like that goes directly back to your perspective, which this should not shock us, on I would say business and being like married to your business owner in general, which is it isn't about like necessarily more money. It's about streamlining it, right? So it isn't just having more money in life, it's about having a better life and what that means. Same with this marketing thing. It isn't just about making more money if that's costing you more.
Right.
You have to streamline it. And I think that a lot of this comes together for me in something that I love talking about, which is the values that all of this are built upon. And I know this is something that you really talk about and probably use to get people on the same page. And so talk to me about kind of how values come into this whole picture of building a sustainable business and relationship with your spouse.
So values between you and your spouse?
I don't know. You tell me. Like, where do values come into play in this overall system?
Well, definitely it starts with that. Like when you're starting or building a business, and if whether you're working together or not, but you're married, you've got this business. The big question is why are you doing it? Like it's got to be beyond money, right? Because if all it is you're just chasing dollars, then you're never going to be completely satisfied, fulfilled. Because there's, you hit one goal and milestone, there's always going to be something else. So what is it that we're doing this for? Why is this important? What's the importance in our life that we're building this business for? And so there's obviously always going to tie down to or come back to lifestyle issues. Like we want a better life. What does that look like? Right? Is it because we want to spend more time with the kids, the grandkids? Is there a location, a better place we want to live so that we can have a better place to raise our kids? Or, instead of living in a city, we want to live in the mountains like you, Angie, being close to Aspen so we can ski all the time. What are the things that really bring life to you? Right. To me, that's what speaks to values is what do you hold most dear? And it can't be just money because money's never going to make you happy.
Nope.
And the people that think that, they figure it out later in life that, hey, that never really brought me happiness because I just kept grinding away over the years and decades. And then I look back and I have all these regrets of all the missed time and missed opportunities with my kids, my spouse, and all that. Because there's too many times where, in fact, there's a book about this. It's called The 5 Regrets of the Dying.
Yes, it is. I reference it a lot. And
Okay.
none of them are, I wish I had made more money. Sorry, spoiler.
Is all how you took care of yourself, live true to your values, true to yourself, and how you take care of relationships, right? Those are the 3 issues, basically.
Yep.
And so, anyways, all to say is you don't want to go through life and your career and look back and have all these regrets. So when it comes to values, like, what do you hold dear? Like, and for some, you might have to dig deep because you've been raised in such a kind of a performance mindset.
Yep.
That you really haven't stopped to think about what do you really value and hold dear. because we've been conditioned to just achieve.
Yes, we have. We have been conditioned that money and titles equal success. It's funny, Robert. Years ago, when I first started my coaching business, I riffed this blog article about what does growth mean to you, and it's very parallel to this conversation about really there's lots of priorities, there's lots of ways to grow as a professional, and only one of them is climb the traditional corporate ladder. But unfortunately, corporate America has only given us that one definition. And that article is still the number one SEO referral source into our website
Oh, really?
because it is such a hot topic for people. And so if that isn't proof enough for all of you out there to just stop and think about what matters most to me as a human, and if you're in business with your spouse, what matters most to that human? And how do we bring them together? And how do we design our life and our business to work for us aligned with that foundation instead of random chaos, take whatever it comes at us and hope we work it out in the end?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really take control of your life. I think
Yep.
we're too responsive to things. And instead of saying, hey, what do we hold true? What do we value? What kind of life do we want to build and live? And then how do we start to live that aspect of that now?
Yes.
So if you like to travel, or if that's a thing that in the future I want to travel more, well, there's things you can do now, even if you don't have a lot of money, but just do staycations, right? But just
Yep.
be intentional about getting out, and just doing things and seeing we live in Southern California, and it's just interesting as we spend a lot of time traveling outside, and it was during COVID, actually is when we became a tourist in our own town.
Yeah.
And so we literally okay, we Googled, okay, things to do in Pasadena or Southern California. And what are all the things that we need to do? I didn't know Hollywood had a lake. There's a Lake Hollywood. I go, where's the Lake Hollywood? I didn't know there was a lake. and so, and so, and so guess what we did? We went to Lake Hollywood. And I was like, hey, this is wild.
Yeah.
So, there's things, instead of holding off living your best life in the future, it's like, first, okay, what does that look like? What does your future best life look like? But then how do we bring that into the present and live that out now instead of just waiting for the future? Because we've had too many friends, friends that are older than us, that have waited their whole career to travel or do the things they want to do to wait till retirement. And
Yep.
inevitably, at least one of the spouses has some kind of health crisis.
Yep.
And then guess what? They can't.
Yep.
And so, you don't want to put those, living your best life in the future, because that may not happen, or you may not be able to do it the way you've envisioned you want to do it, just because of age and health and that kind of stuff.
Why put off to tomorrow what could be done today? Also, I didn't ask Robert to do that, but he just gave you a very nice commercial for Scary Good, Discovering Life Beyond the Sunday Scaries, because essentially that's the undercurrent of the entire book. And I think that is a perfect mic drop moment to say, whether you are in business with your spouse, whether you're an entrepreneur, or whether you're an executive whose spouse needs to support you in a similar way, or just a good old working professional out there, No More Mondays is essentially about exactly what Robert just said. And that is not putting off to tomorrow the things you would love to do today, because you don't know whether you'll get to do them, or you won't be able to do them in the way that you can today. And, for me, that was maximizing out access to the mountains so that I could do regularly what a lot of people do on 1 week of vacation. For you, it might be something completely different, but I also challenge you to find a way to do it, even if you can't do it in the full manifestation of the thing, right? You can go find a lake in your backyard just as much as you can go to Lake Como in Italy. So there is your inspiration. So yes, Robert just gave you a perfect commercial for my book. And so now I have to give him an opportunity to give a commercial for he and Kaylee. So how does everybody out there find out more about you and this amazing work you're doing, both just in business and for those who are married and in business?
Yeah, just go to marriedentrepreneur.co/no more Mondays.
Yeah, we get a special link.
Create a little landing page just for your audience, and in there's a free marriage and business assessment. If you want to know how well you're doing in both areas or not, we measure your life and your business on 6 key areas, and it just gives you some instant feedback on where you're doing well and what things can maybe use a little bit of improvement. So it takes 5 minutes to take, and so I invite you to do that. And of course, you can get access to our book, Tandem, The Married Entrepreneur's Guide to Greater Work-Life Balance, as well on there.
I love it. I feel like date night with a whiskey is in order for that quiz. So make it a fun experience in case you don't like the results.
And what's fun is if you and your spouse take it separately and then compare results, it's interesting.
It's like the Newlywed Show, except for in business.
Yeah.
I like it.
Oh yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
I love it. All right. So one of the things that we explore here is kind of like the future of work. And so I'm curious for you as you think about kind of like where business and where entrepreneurship is going. What, in your opinion, does the future of work look like to you? And how do we humans, and maybe specifically human married business owners, do to navigate what's coming in the future?
Wow, that's a big, broad question.
Yeah. That's why you get to answer it however you see fit.
What's coming in the future? Well, you know, here's what I know. There's nothing new under the sun. In
Thank
business,
you. Thank God. Do you also think that? Like there are no new ideas,
yeah,
just new
I
ways
mean,
to put them out
in
there.
business, one thing that we always know, there's always going to be change, and you're always going to have to adapt. Technology happens, economic issues happen, whatever it is. So sometimes, things like COVID forces you to pivot. There's always going to be about, if you're in business 30, 40 years, there's probably once a decade at least, there's going to be opportunities that you're going to have to pivot or should pivot. And if you don't want to pivot because this is how you do things, right, you're going to become a dinosaur, and eventually your business is going to be in a slow decline. Yep. And you have to be able to keep up with, like right now, AI is a new thing. And I know there's still a lot of people resisting using AI for a number of reasons. And I said, AI is just a tool like anything else, just like when the cars came out, or just when we first got Google or the internet, right? They're just tools. And so you might as well learn how to use the tool to your advantage instead of having other people do it and get in front of you. Yep. Right. Yes, there's some scary aspects of what AI can do, but at the end of the day, it's how you use it. So you might as well use it to your advantage to do good instead of, other people that might use it to manipulate. But anyways, all to say is you got to be open to just changing because things are going to change with or without you. So you might as well just change with it.
Yep. I love how you ended that, is that you can either embrace change and adapt to it, or you can hold on to the current with such a tight fist that it's like just feels futile and make your life harder. And so whether it's AI or other things changing around you, I think that's a great advice for just how to adapt to the future, no matter where you are in work or business. Yeah. So you took that big, broad question and kind of nailed it.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah. I could sit and listen to Robert. You have fantastic wisdom, and I like how you present it. It's relatable. It's, we can make change and business and everything so complex, but at the end of the day, I think it really comes down to trust with the ones that are around you and the ones that are supporting you, and don't put off to tomorrow what you can do today, whether that is accepting change or whether that is checking something off the bucket list. Robert Fukui, everybody, thank you so much for being here for this episode of No More Mondays. For all of you out there listening, thanks you for tuning in. This has been a good one, y'all. I hope you get a little inspiration. Go on a date with your married business spouse this week. And maybe you could even both go buy Scary Good, Discovering Life Beyond the Sunday Scaries and read it together. You'll get some inspiration on what to do and what not to do as you build your business together. Go check out, Robert, what's our URL one more time?
marriedentrepreneur.co/no more Mondays.
We'll put it in the show notes. Go check it out. Get a little quiz, have a little whiskey, take your COO on a date if that's okay and legal. And I'll see you next Monday for another awesome conversation on No More Mondays.